Saturday, December 31st, 11:10 a.m. New York time. We're doing a review of the year for 2022 of the stock market performance, comparing the beginning of the year to the end of the year for trading. We'll look first at the stock indexes, then the stock sectors, follow up with the ending for the Fang Plus stocks. We have 6 grids here, looking at 6 major United States stock indexes. Top left, the S&P 500, which has 500 companies listed in that index. The middle top, the NASDAQ 100, which has 100 companies listed in it. The top right, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which has 30 companies listed in it. The bottom left, the Dow Transports, that has 20 companies listed in it. And the middle, center, bottom, the Dow Utilities, which has 15 companies listed in it. And the bottom right, the Russell 2000, that has 2,000 companies listed in it. Okay, so here on the top left, the S&P 500 has 11 sectors listed in it. I will go over that closer to the middle of the video. It's very diversified, this index. Again, it's the S&P 500. In the middle, the NASDAQ 100, there's the NASDAQ Composite, which is large index, but I'm showing here the NASDAQ 100, the largest 100 companies on the NASDAQ 100. This is mostly high-tech companies, has been leading the growth for years in the United States. And most people, when they want to have their investment grow, they're putting in the index or similar indexes to this. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, one of the oldest indexes in the United States, here on the top right, is very diversified index. It's got stocks from the Dow Transports, the Dow Utilities, the NASDAQ 100. Yeah, this Dow index is also heavily weighted with bank stocks. But again, the most heavily weighted ones are the tech ones, such as your your Apple. Bottom left, the transports. Again, your largest U.S. publicly traded transport companies. You know them. That includes some of your airlines, some of your trucking companies, shipping companies, and of course, your mentioned here, the utilities, the big companies that provide your electricity. The Russell 2000, again, very small publicly traded companies compared to these other big ones. Again, if I didn't mention, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is the 30 largest United States publicly traded company. These companies are worth hundreds of billions of dollars on this index, not hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions. With the Russell 2000, lower requirements for the value. And the Russell 2000 also represents smaller banks. Yeah, your smaller regional banks, where the Dow Jones Industrial Average has your big banks, your Goldman Sachs, your JP Morgan, your Bank of America. Those were, here again, smaller value banks. So when interest rates go up, different effect often you see on the effect of the Dow Jones versus the Russell 2000. Yeah, higher interest rates certainly affect the Russell 2000 much more. Each of these have stock ETFs you could trade. You could trade bullish or bearish. I've shown those many times, those stock symbols for the stock ETFs. Example, here we're looking at the SPX S&P 500 cash index. If you're bullish, you could be buying the stock ETF SPY, Sierra Papa Yankee. If you're bearish, you could be doing the inverse. There's a bearish stock ETF that you could be trading, and so forth with the other ones. Okay, now we're looking here at the 1-year chart. The beginning of the year was here. That was the high. And the end of the year, we closed here. So we closed above the low and much further away than the high. The yellow candle, what does that mean? It means we closed inside. We didn't take out the high or low of the prior candle. It means indecision. So the last trading week of this month, that's what happened. We didn't take out the high or low of the prior week. Putting this on a higher time frame where each candle represents a month. And I'm going to put this on 10 years. So the chart now would be representing 10 years. There we go, 10 years. Each candle represents a month. zoom in for the last 2 years. So here is the high this year, all-time new high, the highest it's ever been. The last 2 months, look at that. It's a consolidation, where this is a trend consolidation. And notice we actually made a higher high than the prior month and a higher low. So you see the low, that was the low in November, the low in December. So we made higher lows. And again, here's a high of November, here's a high of December. So the trend reversed. Yep, higher highs, tops, higher highs, and the higher lows. And again, consolidation closed down here. So potentially we're reversing. I don't know about that on the bigger picture, but I do know use caution, because there were singles last year, the end of last year, that were topping. Much of that's discussed in my other videos. Let's zoom out here. Here is a low 3 years ago, the virus low. Reversed, went up, consolidation. End of one administration, new administration, rolled up to new highs. And then this year, we made all-time new highs. And at that point, we sold off. Look at that, we sold off. Much of a consolidation, a lot of whipsaw here. Again, this consolidations often get tested. We came down and tested that consolidation. But again, we still had that momentum downside, which may come down to retest the low here. Often that happens when you have big events happen, they get retested. I go back in history, showing you that. Some other videos did. Let's continue on. Look at the NASDAQ 100. Here's the high for the year. Here's the low for the year. Yep, there we are. So it broke down, made a lower low, lower high than the prior week, where I showed you the S&P 500 was an inside candle for the week, where this is worse than the S&P 500. Let's again put the S&P 500 on that 1 year, same time frame. Each candle is a month. There we go. Look at the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. So the NASDAQ 100 is worse than the S&P 500. So if you're trading in one of those indexes, well, this has been the worst one so far. Looking here at the Dow Jones transports, the high of the year, the low of the year, same thing, inside candle. Okay, let's look here at the NASDAQ on the monthly, past 10 years. Well, past 10 years, similar chart pattern as the S&P 500, except right off the bat, we'll zoom in. Right off the bat, last year, the NASDAQ 100 had hit its all-time high, where the S&P 500 did theirs this year on January. Yeah, so again, I mentioned earlier there were signs. Again, if you don't look at multiple indexes, the bigger picture, you may not be aware of that. You are aware now because I shared that with you. And then, look at here, we're in a consolidation. We're in a consolidation, but we're below, or we tested below this consolidation. So again, it's showing worse because the S&P 500 on that monthly, it didn't go down below that consolidation, where the NASDAQ 100 did. And I mentioned the Dow Jones, look at that. So let's put this on a monthly, the Dow Jones, 10 years. Look at here, 10 years. Again, on the monthly, massive consolidation, those 3 years ago during that virus year, came down, tested it, but we didn't go below it. Nope. So let's go. We're looking here at the monthly on the NASDAQ and the monthly on the Dow Jones. So again, the NASDAQ, deep retracement, tested the bottoms of this consolidation, where the Dow Jones did not. Nope. The Dow Jones tested about midpoint from here. See? So it's a stronger index. Again, you do this on the S&P 500. So that was consolidation of that virus year. And S&P 500 tested the midpoint. So again, the NASDAQ, you see on the weekly time frame, it's worse. And on the monthly time frame, it's worse. And then again, you see leadership. Well, when you see this decline, the S&P 500 on the monthly, the NASDAQ on the monthly, and the Dow Jones on the monthly. Right off the bat, this is looking better, the Dow Jones. Let's go look at the other indexes, the Dow Transports. Yeah, the Dow Transports. I said there's 20 companies listed here. Well, here's the beginning of the year, and beginning of the year actually later in the year, made a new high. There's a low for the year. Look at this for the weekly, inside candle for the month. Interesting. The Dow Utilities, 15 companies. There was the beginning of the year. Later in the year, we made a new high. Does it surprise you? My utility bills went higher. Not surprised. The utility company made higher profits, more money. Yep. And then later in the year, that low. And the end of the year, look at that, red. Went higher high, higher low than that prior week. Where Dow Transport's inside candle. Where Dow Utilities went there. And now let's look at the Russell 2000. Beginning of the year was all-time high. The summer months, the low. And here, for the end of the year, closer to the low. We also made a lower high, lower low than the prior time frame. Let's put this on a monthly. Look at the past 10 years. A little history. Russell 2000. Yeah, smaller companies such as your GameStops, Bed Bath Beyond many. Again, some of these companies are not necessarily still on this index. Some of them rotate to smaller indexes or big indexes just because their value changes. That has a lot to do with the company being listed on certain stock indexes. Much more higher requirements to be on the Dow Jones index, plus higher requirements to be on the New York Stock Exchange. So again, here's the Russell 2000. There was the virus low. There was the breakout that month, that virus, which was the second to last month. That'd be that November month of 2020, where it changed, took out that high. Look at this massive consolidation down here. Let's just end this with looking at the Dow Transports on the monthly. 10-year, there we go, 10-year. Last month of the year, inside candle, indecision. Interesting. Wow. And go here on the Dow Utilities, the monthly. Oops. What's the difference between the Dow Utilities and the Dow, then the NASDAQ 100? Well, the Dow Utilities are companies that pay high dividends. So a lot of people gravitate when they think the stock market's not going to have growth anymore. They gravitate to either savings accounts, money markets, something that's going to have higher interest so they still earn what they consider a good return on their monthly income. Or they buy Dow utility stocks, typically pay higher dividends, where when the stock market starts slowing down, not have growth, they exit the NASDAQ 100 because most of those don't pay dividends or high dividends. Well, here we are looking at Dow Utilities past 10 years. Yeah. Look at a lot of whipsaw here. And for the end of the year, we made a higher high, higher low. So look at all these monthly candles. If you just want to look at the last month, the last two candles on the right of each chart, who's trending higher high, higher low, who's inside? Well, right off the bat, again, I mentioned the S&P 500 did make a higher high, higher low. The NASDAQ 100 also made a higher high, higher low. Same with the Dow Utilities, higher high, higher low. The Dow Transports, no, inside candle. The Dow Utilities, much stronger, higher high, higher low. And the Russell 2000, lower high, lower low. So again, this one being the worst, the Russell 2000 for the end of the month. Well, Dow Transports inside. Let's go into the FANG Plus. The sectors. There's 11 sectors in the S&P 500. I'm going to go by the largest. When I say the largest, I mean the ones that weighted the most in the S&P 500. So the first index, XLK. Technology. Yep, it's technology. These are stock ETFs. You can also trade the stock ETFs. What's a stock ETF? A stock ETF has more than one, well, for these stock ETFs, this obviously has more than one company listed in it. And it's very similar to the NASDAQ 100. So again, you could trade the NASDAQ 100. If you're bullish, the stock symbol is QQQ, triple Qs. Or if you want to do the technology index, XLK. Here's the high for the year. Here's the low for the year. And the last week of the year, lower low, lower high. XLV, healthcare. Opening of the year, high of the year. low of the year. Look at that. Very close to the highs of the year. Healthcare. Last weekly candle, higher high, higher low. XLF financials. Opening the year, second week, made a new high for the year, low for the year, and here we are. Last week of the year, higher high, higher low. XLY, consumer discretionary. First trading week of the year, all-time high, and last trading week of the year, all-time low. Lower high, low, low, yeah. Extremely bearish, loser. Again, that is XLY. XLY, consumer discretionary. If you're invested in a pension that owns stocks, remember, not all pensions are actually invested in equity. Some pensions policies they're only invested in fixed income products, bonds, mortgages. Yeah. Again, if you own or invested in that, due diligence to find out if you are owning this loser. You might be in a government pension. Yeah, government pension are managed by private companies, and some of them are very bad. If you compare the Florida one to the New York one, big difference. I recall the New York one still doing better. XLC, X-ray Lima Charlie, communication services. First week of the year was a high, low of the year there, and look at that. Higher high, higher low last week, but still close to the low, loser. XLI, industrials. First week of the year was a high. There's the low of the year, inside candle for the week. XLP, consumer staples. There was the beginning of the year, the high of the year, the low of the year, and there we finished the end of the year. XLE, energy. Beginning of the year, down there. End of the year, beginning of the year, which is the lows of the year. Later in the year, the high, and here we are. Again, we're really surprised the utility companies raise fees to most communities in the United States, making record profits, and putting the burden on the most amount of people. In my state of Florida, the governor signed off approval with his committee to allow utilities to raise rates. In my community, my part of the state, coming this January, the utility company is raising it by 11%. Yeah. So you can check with your state how your policy works. But in the state of Florida, the governor appoints the committee. The energy companies lobby the governor to have their best interests put on that committee to approve it, and then the governor supports it. So again, we will be having higher utility rates. And my utility company is owned by a bigger utility company. So it has an effect on many people. But again, they're not improving the grid system. They're not improving alternative energies because we're burdened to fossil fuels in my grid system. So when the fossil fuels go higher, the burden gets put on the most amount of people. There are other alternatives and be a diversified power plant. Okay, enough of that soapbox. XLU, utilities, beginning of the year, high of the year, low of the year, there we closed. XLRE, real estate, the high of the year, beginning of the year, the low of the year, and there we closed. XLB, materials. Look at that, beginning of the year is the high of the year, low of the year, there we closed. That was 11 sectors. And let's finish this off by looking at the FANG stocks. Yep, the FANG stocks. The most widely traded, I don't know if that's correct pronunciation, of stocks. Hope you got my legit. Apple. Beginning of the year was the high. End of the year, new low. Loser. Yep. That was Apple. You want to see the monthly? Make a donation to my account. Wink, wink. Links at the end of the video. Wink, wink. Here we go. Past 10 years. All-time high. And this is not counting for all the times the company splits. They also pay a dividend. They started paying a dividend when Steve Jobs was ending close to the end of his career. He announced to start giving a dividend. There we go. A lot of whipsaw. Microsoft. Beginning of the year was an all-time high. There's the low. End of the year, inside candle, weekly. Amazon. Beginning of the year was the high. End of the year, all-time new low. Loser. Meta, aka former name Facebook. Again, I understand they changed their name. They could have kept the stock symbol the same. They could have kept it FB. Google changed its name to the company now called Alphabet, but they kept the stock symbol. There's Facebook beginning of the year, or Meta, all-time high. There's a low of this massive, tiny little trading ranges, likely consolidation into a distribution. Google, beginning of the year. Again, the stock symbol's Google, but the company's Alphabet. Thank you, Alphabet, for keeping the original stock symbol. Beginning of the year, high of the year, low of the year. And last week, lower low, lower high, loser. Tesla, beginning of the year, all-time high. End of the year, new low, loser. And if you don't know, because most people are not aware by choice, they maybe are not listening to diversified multiple media sources. And I think multiple media sources, if you want to know about business, there's technical publications. If you want to know about engineering, there's engineer publications. If you want to know about health, there's health publications. Well, during the Obama administration, governor of California, the state of California gave the most what do you want to call it? Corporate welfare to Tesla. Yep, Tesla. And then the federal government helped too. So again, during that Obama administration, when they were sponsoring our grants, corporate welfare, Tesla was one of the companies that got them. There was also solar companies that make solar panels. Again, but the point is, that company would have gone bankruptcy, belly up, gone, if they didn't get help from California, state tax dollars, and other federal government incentives to spill it out. That's all facts. You can check and verify that. I wouldn't read it from a mainstream publication. And there are some companies that got bailouts that went bankruptcy and disappeared, and tax dollars were lost. NVIDIA, maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong. November Victor Delta Alpha, beginning of the year, all-time high. There's the low of the year and trending down. Netflix, beginning of the year, all-time high. There's the low of the year. There we are now. Company is Alibaba, Chinese company, similar to Amazon. And stock symbol Bravo Alpha, Bravo Alpha. Beginning of the year. After that, all-time high, all-time low. And look at that, tight trading range. So putting this up here, back to the weekly. So you could zoom in and see majority of these, again, these are what? Technology companies. Majority of them are performing way below their highs. Several of them all-time new lows. Yeah, this is not leadership. No. So again, I would recommend just taking consideration, look at the sectors I show you, to look at the strongest sectors. If you want to be diversified, be in some of those. Many thanks for watching. Thank you, as always, for spending just a little bit of your time with me. If you've gotten value from this video, if this was helpful, then please consider sharing a small monetary donation to my channel by going below and clicking on my PayPal or Venmo. You can leave a small tip. If you don't want to share financial support, no problem. Just click the like and subscribe and leave a comment, please.